Hello and welcome to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Lyndel Kennedy, who is the Victorian President of Aspergers Victoria, and also she's an author and written a book about Aspergers. Welcome to the program, Lyndel.
Thank you, Mirella. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. And can you tell us, just to educate our viewers and everyone, what actually is Aspergers?
Well, Aspergers is part of the autism spectrum. It's a neurological difference in the brain that makes the acquisition of some skills harder and other things more easy. We often like to start off by what it's not. It's not a disease, it's not a disorder. Well, officially it is a disorder, but we don't like to think of it as a disorder. You can't catch it from another person and it won't kill you. It's that neurological difference, that wiring in the brain that makes social skills, usually social communication, quite difficult. People on the spectrum will often have sensory sensitivities, so they'll find bright lights very distracting. They might have very sensitive hearing, and they'll have usually a very passionate interest or obsessions in some areas and get very firmly attached to routines and rituals.
Okay. And how do people get Aspergers? Is it hereditary or is it something that just develops over time?
You usually are born with it. It's a genetic difference in the brain, so there has been a lot of research into the genetics of it, but we'll talk about that later, I think. But yeah, you're born with it. It's hereditary, so it often runs through families, and if it's not the parents, it might be a grandparent or an aunt or uncle that they'll find out are on the spectrum. And people are often diagnosed in later life if a child is diagnosed within the family, and then everybody starts saying, "Oh, but you're just like Uncle Johnny," or Grandma Jean's got a lot of those characteristics, and then another family member. Adults tend to be diagnosed as a result of a child in the family being diagnosed.
Okay. And what led you to become the president of Aspergers Victoria?
Oh, it was a bit of a long road. My son was diagnosed when he was 8 in grade 3, grade 4, and I knew nothing about it at the time, and went on to this massive journey of learning and reading and trying to work out what to do to help him. He was being bullied very badly at school when he was younger, and did have some of those sensory issues, and was finding school bells very distressing, and just noisy playgrounds and change rooms for sport were distressing for him. So he was hiding and trying to get away from certain situations. So we started seeing professionals, and you get bombarded with all this information, and you go and see psychologists and speech pathologists and occupational therapists, and there's just all this advice thrown at you. It gets very, very confusing. And then I found out about Aspergers Victoria. It was then called Aspergers Syndrome Support Network Victoria, and I started going along to those support groups, and it was just a revelation, the knowledge and the wisdom that the parents were sharing around the table as to how to make everything work together. So I went from being a participant in the groups to very quickly running one, because the leader who'd been running the group I was going to had decided to leave the group after doing it for a long time. So I became a support group leader, and then vice president and then president. So I've been involved in the group for about 8 years now. So.
Right. And what are some signals of someone who has Aspergers? What are some things to look out for? If someone, say, they're married to someone who's got Aspergers, they're not diagnosed yet, or they've got a child who's showing signs of it, what would they have to be looking out for?
With a kid, you might often see that the parents will be aware that the child's very bright, but they're struggling at school. They're struggling to complete work at school. The teacher might be saying that they're not hearing me in class. Is there something wrong with their hearing? A lot of kids go off and have auditory processing investigations, and we'll often find that there's an auditory processing issue in that the child's hearing is perfectly normal, but in a noisy classroom setting, they're just not picking up, they're not filtering out the teacher's words from all the background noise. So they might be referred off for help with that, or they just don't complete the work that's set to them. They'll be bullied. They're having troubles with friendships and social understandings at school. So that often leads kids to be flagged. I've got a bit of a theory that Asperger's and autism have always been around. People have always, on the spectrum, have always been around. But the classrooms in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s were very quiet places. The teacher spoke out the front. You sat up the back and wrote and memorised and regurgitated back in tests. It was all very individual learning. So classrooms used to be quite Aspie friendly. Aspie is the term that we like to use for people on the spectrum. Okay. Well, some people like it, some don't. But my family likes it. But now classrooms are very socially based, and kids tend to sit in groups of 4 or 6, and the learning's all socially based. So there's a much greater social demand in the classroom that can lead to a child getting overwhelmed and having difficulties with peers and getting upset and just finding the environment too stressful, and they might leave and leave the classroom without permission. So teachers will be flagging behaviour that's unexpected compared to the other children in the class, and that can often lead to people going off for a diagnosis.
And what are some other signs to look out for that someone's got Asperger's?
A strong preference for routine, for doing things the same way all the time, passionate interests that just completely absorb you, and you forget to eat and forget to shower because you're just passionately interested in something. Obsessions is the medical term, but we prefer passionate interest at Aspergers Victoria.
Yeah.
So, yeah, difficulties with social communication, sensory issues, repetitive behaviours.
So there are some pros about it, like to have passionate interest and to be
Absolutely.
really focused on
Absolutely.
something is what geniuses are, really, aren't they?
Yes. A parent will come to one of our support groups and they'll be upset because their child's just been diagnosed and they think this is a life sentence. And we try to get them to say, what's your child interested in? What are they really good at? And focus on that. And all the therapies and the treatments that you might look at, make sure that you always keep focusing on what the child's really good at, what they really enjoy, and access them that way. So if they're it was one time my son was having trouble learning times tables in grade 3 or something, but he was passionately interested in the Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and so we used the cards. We made up games to learn multiplication using these card games. So, but using his passionate interests, so that
so kind of tailor it to what they're passionate about, and then help develop whatever other skills they know they need to know through what they're passionate about. It's like sticking the vegetables in the spaghetti without, if the children don't want the
exactly. Blend it up and hide it in. That's right. Yes.
Well, that's beautiful. Then there's always a positive to everything, isn't there? So this is something really positive, to bring out the positive, focus on the positive, because they don't want to be felt like out, that they're left out in any way. So
and all the workshops and seminars and groups that we run at Aspergers Victoria, we try really hard to focus on the positives, and there's a way around every obstacle. I think it's just being creative in how you think about it and the problems. And as people on the spectrum get older and they move out of that classroom environment where they have to do something because everybody's doing it and it's on the curriculum and you've all got to learn it, you as an adult, you choose the environments you put yourself in, and you hopefully find you're able to manage your life so that you do find the places that you excel at and the things that you really enjoy, and find your people.
Beautiful. We're about to go to a break now. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Lyndel Kennedy, who is the president of Aspergers Victoria. She's also written a book on Aspergers. Welcome to the program. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what help is there for people with Aspergers?
There's a lot of help. There's a lot of things that you can do to make a person's life easier. Dr. Asperger himself said that the cure for autism and Asperger's is understanding teachers, accommodating employers, supportive communities, and a parent's faith in the child's potential. So it's all about working out where that individual is at, what skills they need to develop to help them progress in their life, and then finding the right person to help with that. So it could be speech therapy to help with social thinking and non-verbal communication skills. It could be occupational therapy to help with sensory issues, sensory accommodations that the person might need if they've got very acute hearing or trouble regulating their body movements and keeping still in environments where they need to keep still. There's cute little things you can do for little kids in school where they have wedges that they sit on their seats to alter their angle in their seat and just make them use some of their energy in keeping their balance in a seat. Can help them stay in a seat longer if you need them to stay seated in the classroom. There's all sorts of things you can do. And
what about a spouse, like someone who's already an adult? How can the spouse help the other spouse who's got Asperger's?
Learning as much as you can about Asperger's and autism and what it means, and how that different wiring in the brain can lead to different communication styles and communication misunderstandings. That's usually the main issue in long-term relationships and marriages, is that there's constant misunderstandings, and a person's abrupt communicating style might be interpreted as being rude or uncaring. but it's just learning how to communicate in a way that works for both parties.
Right, yeah, because I was looking up the internet and it was saying there was some wives that were very angry, and someone wrote up something about Aspergers and saying the husband was Aspergers, had Aspergers, and it was very, very difficult to live with. And the other person giving advice was saying, get out while you can, I can't get out of my relationship, kind of thing.
Well, that's awful. I mean, bad relationships happen everywhere, and it's not just Asperger's. It's not Asperger's that causes it. It's just the personality style, and perhaps those two people haven't learnt how to communicate with each other. And obviously, some people just aren't right for each other. But it's not because of Asperger's. Asperger's doesn't make you into a bad person, and I really hate for people to think that.
Get the wrong impression about it. And so it's basically do all the research you can on how to make a beautiful relationship work with someone with Asperger's.
Yes. It's all just about communication and learning how to understand each other's communication styles, and if the person's not looking you in the eye, it's not because they don't respect you, it's because they find the amount of information that's coming to them from your eyes can be overwhelming, so they look away so they can concentrate on what they want to say and concentrate on hearing you properly. And so it's not just jumping to conclusions that they're not looking at me, therefore they don't love me, therefore that's, you're heading in the wrong direction if you start thinking that way.
Okay. And all this information, where would they find all this information on how to deal with it?
We would encourage people to come first of all to Aspergers Victoria. We run a lot of support groups and social groups for all parts of the families. So adults, young adults, women's groups, teenage children groups, boys and girls, siblings, parents and carers and partners. We run groups for everybody in the Asperger's community. We like to think of it as a community, and our goal is to reach out to everyone in that community and provide information and support and that understanding environment so you can come and talk about your issues. So our partners group has been running for about 5 years, I think, and one woman was telling me recently that her husband wasn't actually officially diagnosed, but she thought he was on the spectrum, and he was maybe coming to that idea as well, but he wasn't happy that she was coming to the support groups until she explained it to him that she was going to learn how to be a better wife, and then he was very happy for her to be going to the groups, because some people could be worried that you're going to complain about me, but that's not the case at all. It's all about sharing stories, sharing strategies, and trying different ideas.
It's beautiful because they're just trying to find a way to keep these relationships going and keep harmony and
exactly.
taking it on themselves, so how they know how to deal with this person who they don't know how to deal with, I guess. That's wonderful, I think. And what other things do you run at the Aspergers Victoria?
Oh, we do. Well, the groups are the main thing. That's how we started nearly 25 years ago. We're celebrating a 25th birthday in February of next year. On Hans Asperger's birthday, we're as close to it as we can manage. He was born in February. So we do support groups, social groups. We have a resource library, a website that has a lot of information on it. We do, Tamsin, our communications coordinator, produces a beautiful newsletter every quarter that's got a massive amount of information in it. We give, all our new members get an information kit that's 100 pages. It's a book that we produced that explains all different things about Asperger's, and there's chapters on education and workforce issues and all sorts of different things there. We have social media channels. We have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. What else do? We offer a helpline for phone and email support. But the groups are really the main thing we do. And our evening seminars are a very big part. So we'll have hundreds of people come along to information seminars.
And what sort of, whereabouts are you situated?
Our head office is in Blackburn at the Nerve Centre, but we run groups at the moment in Ringwood, Carnegie, Reservoir, Glen Waverley, the boys group, the primary school age boys group, because they're active little kids. They go out to different places and go bowling and movies and do all sorts of park activities and farms and different things. So they move all around the eastern suburbs. But
and also it's important to educate people. Is someone with Asperger's a danger to other people? Because there's this link that we hear in the media, people with Asperger's, that person who did all these bad things, he had Asperger's.
Yeah.
So can we just educate everybody?
Sure,
on
yeah,
that?
we get very upset whenever we hear about it, particularly coming out of America, some mass shooting and the perpetrator's got Asperger's, that's why he did it, and that's just absolute rubbish. Statistically, a person on the spectrum is far more likely to be a victim of crime than the perpetrator. They're far more likely to be the victim of bullying in their younger years and even in the workforce than they ever are to be the perpetrator. It's a misunderstanding that because their face might not show emotions in the way a neurotypical person might, that there's the impression that they're cold and unfeeling, and it's completely not the truth at all. It's that they might not know how to express feelings, in that they're worried about expressing feelings in the wrong way. They're told off so often for doing the wrong thing, they become worried and anxious about doing the wrong thing, so they freeze in some situations and will be overcome with strong emotions and concern and love or worry about someone, but not know how to show it. And so it's the way to make life better for everybody is for us all to educate ourselves and learn how to make the most of every situation.
Beautiful. About to go to a break now. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're with Lyndel Kennedy, who is also an author of a book on Aspergers. She's also the president of Aspergers Victoria. Welcome back to the program, Lyndel.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what are some positive things that people can do together with someone with Aspergers, like as a family unit? What sort of things can they do together?
Oh, it's all about finding a passionate interest that has activities that are around it, and then negotiating to take it in turns, perhaps on choosing activities for dates or outings. With our family, we always try to find activities, because I've got two children on the spectrum. My youngest daughter is also on the spectrum, and just finding outings that, it can be tricky finding something that everybody wants to do, but we try and take it in turns, and family holidays to destinations that might be a passionate interest. So at one point Lord of the Rings was very popular in our house, so we were lucky enough to go to New Zealand and travel around in a motorhome and visiting all of the Lord of the Rings sites, and I can't remember the name of the place in Wellington, that Weka or something, where they made all the models and things. So lots of, it's just finding the interests and then an activity around that will be enjoyable, but managing the time as well. So agreeing on a time and a duration that suits everyone, and keeping to that can be really important as well.
Okay. And what are some research that's been done in the past, and what's some research that's been done now?
In the past, the research tended to focus a lot just on the genetics, on finding the particular genes that set off autism and working out if you can stop that. But that's got a lot of adults on the spectrum very upset about you trying to get rid of autism. And you know, it might be true that some researchers are trying to find a cure for autism, but that way of thinking then negates the value of people on the spectrum and the importance of all the things that they've done for our society. You know, so many of our great scientific and artistic and intellectual advances in knowledge have been done by people on the spectrum, because they've got that passionate interest, that ability to focus at intense levels for very long periods of time and not be distracted by all the social stuff and the water cooler gossip, for example. So now there's more research moving into adult issues, quality of life issues. I've got a list here actually, because just on our website alone, researchers come to us every week saying they've got a new research study and could we help them find participants. So we advertise all the university and the reputable research that's going on, and we've got we've got about 40 different projects listed on our website at the moment, and just some of those topics, apologies for reading, but what things that they're looking at now are, sorry, I've got the right page, pet therapy, video-based instruction, sleep studies is always a popular one. There's one on post-school pathways, mental health for mothers, impacts on parenting. There's still some research that's focused on genes and developing a biobank, so that researchers, when they're wanting to look at genetic stuff, have this bank of material that they can go to. There's a longitudinal study on school leavers and what has made them successful, what's helped them find success in post-school pathways. intimate relationships, personality traits, facial expressions, eye tracking, successful employment, internet addiction, another popular one, ease of access to interventions, educational needs analysis, and a sibling study. They're just some of the studies that we've got on our website at the moment that's being done all around Australia and also internationally.
Okay, so this is the current research they're
the
looking
current
into
projects that are advertised on our website, that if people are interested in helping further scientific knowledge, and a number of them also offer small rewards. They can't pay you for participation, but they might give you a movie voucher or a gift voucher or a chance to win some prize or something.
And can you tell us a little bit about the book that you've written?
Well, when my family first learned about Asperger's, I found it very hard to find Australian-based information. There was books on English situations and American families, but the American and English medical and school systems are very different to ours.
Yeah.
So I was doing hours and hours of research. I was talking to as many people as I could. I learnt so much from the support groups that Aspergers Victoria was running that I thought, well, what about people who can't get to support groups, or people who don't like the concept of support groups, because there are some of those around, hard to believe. So I thought, well, all this information needs to be in one place. So I thought, well, I'll need to write a book about it, because I'm an author and I work in that industry. But I was wary of telling too much of my family's story. I didn't want to air our dirty laundry, and I didn't want my children to hate me at some point in the future for telling too much about our family. Plus, I was also thinking that every person you meet on the spectrum is completely different to every other person you meet on the spectrum. There'll be some traits that are similar, but we're all individuals. So I thought, well, you need to hear lots of different stories. So I found 15 families that were happy to be interviewed, and I did case studies on those, and I shared their stories in the book. And I was originally just going to do one book, but I collected so much material that it looks like it's going to be a trilogy. I'm working on the second one now. So the first one's The Hidden Difficulty, Aspergers at School, and the first one's Discovering Aspergers, and the second one will be Aspergers at School.
So this book is, what's this book called?
Yes, this one here. The Hidden Difficulty, hard to spell. The booksellers don't like me for the double F because it sounds like an S, but I didn't want disability on there. So my son and I came up with that title, The Hidden Difficulty and Discovering Aspergers, because this is the beginning of the journey, what to do when you're first diagnosed, and what therapies are available, and the funding, which is very important. But,
okay, and is there much funding for Asperger's?
It's difficult, depends on the age of the person when they're diagnosed. At the moment, in 2008, the Rudd government brought in the Helping Children with Autism package, which provides $12,000 for children up till the age of 7. So they have to be diagnosed before their 6th birthday and access the funding before their 7th birthday. So it's all designed to help families access early intervention, because that shows that children have the best chances of reaching their potential if they're diagnosed early and taught the social skills that they need to thrive in a school environment early. For children over the age of if you're diagnosed after the age of 6 but before the age of 13, there's a second part of the Helping Children with Autism, which gives you 20 Medicare funded sessions, so rebates basically, to use for speech pathology, occupational therapy, psychology. There's a mental health care plan. There are a few things, but as you get older, there's less available.
And with Aspergers Victoria, are they in need of funding?
Oh gosh, that's a very good question. We're desperately in need in funding. We are completely self-funded. In the last 2 years we've managed to get $2,000 worth of grants, which doesn't even pay for rent. We've grown considerably since we started with just 5 families meeting in a suburban lounge room. We now have, in the last financial year, we have 14 groups running monthly, over 160 events. 3,500 people physically came to one of our events or groups in the last financial year, and we're doing everything is provided by volunteers. Some of us are working almost full time to provide all the services that we provide. So we're desperately seeking funding. We've got donation options on our website, and we're pestering all the politicians that we can get an interview with to try and get some help there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
You've been watching Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. I hope you enjoyed the program with our guest Lyndel Kennedy from Aspergers Victoria. See you again soon.